RPGaDay 2026, Day 17. The pylon was built a generation ago. Before the advent of the various mines at the edge of the Dragon Spire Mountains, it served as a major source of income for the Duchy of Minok, collecting fees and taxes from the various caravans passing back and forth to the lands of the West. Over time, various merchants found it more lucrative to spend their gold on influencing the Duke's court rather than pay fees on every caravan. Over time, the castle came to serve less as a revenue source and more as a source of protection for the route into the mountain passages to the west. With the discovery of an astonishing number of productive mines in the region, the castle was, for a period of several years, the hub of martial activity. The forces on the frontier were increased to clear the area of tribes of humanoids and large monsters. As these threats diminished, it became more effective for the mining camps to maintain small security forces at their sites to deal with the limited dangers. The pylon's garrison changed to a smaller number of light troops capable of covering long distances more quickly. For a time, this stasis held. After Starfall, a small settlement grew up near the castle. Many of those here were refugees from the village in the hills that was shattered. As growing troubles in the city of Humbridge threatened the flow of supplies, the future of the pylon was debated. The garrison was further reduced. This left them unprepared when Hruggek led his force of goblinkin out of the mountains. The pylon was overrun. There was a brief period of chaos and uncertainty until the camps, caravans, and duchy realized the bugbear god could be appeased with gold and victuals. Now, Hruggek's forces serve as gatekeepers. Meanwhile, far from the frontier, the powers that be debate whether to seek to dislodge them, find an alternate route through the rugged peaks, or if trade to the west no longer serves a lucrative pursuit. So this is where we find the bugbear god. He has an established center of power, and he has fairly considerable forces at his disposal. His attitude, as from our card draw when we establish that faction, is curious neutral. He has been cast out, and initially he sought to raise an army, his forces, to gather those who would be loyal to him, who would worship him, and thereby increase his power, both in terms of martial force and in terms of the idea of gods feeding on the faith of their believers. But having come down in this area, he has limited resources to draw from, having to have gone deep into the mountains to the areas not cleared out by the forces of humanity and civilization who had kind of extinguished his type of peoples or driven them off from this area before. And so, after the initial gathering of forces, seizing the castle, he finds himself in what essentially is a desert of faith for him. There's not really too many creatures that would take up his worship in this little section of the world. And now being bribed by riches, food, and generally those wanting him to leave them alone, he really has no path to, in his own mind, return to what he was and where he was without both great effort and great risk to the forces he has acquired. So he has settled into, by the card draw, a friendly rivalry with, I think the one that makes most sense is the Death Slod, whose own center of power is some distance away at the now freshly grown city built up from a town some distance away. and there is a rivalry where the Death Slot is seeking to acquire its own power that probably requires some trade to the west. We'll go into that more when we talk about the Death Slot's faction, but seeking knowledge and sources of power that need to acquire through caravans, which the god Hruggek controls the route. And in the city and beyond, as there are those seeking alternate routes to those, the Death Slot has interest in that. And so there's maneuvering going on. Can Hruggek maintain this control, which allows him to be essentially get everything he wants that's possible for him in this area, versus the Death Slot, who would probably prefer that he be bypassed so they can more quickly obtain their own goals. And then the final piece of the puzzle for this faction is, from the cards, trying to stop a guild member. The one that makes most sense is the Red Dragon. The Red Dragon would seek pillage. The Red Dragon, we go to the stereotypical concept of the Red Dragon seeking to exist on a pile of riches. Well, there's a civilized world right in front of them, which doesn't serve much of a purpose for Hruggek, other than possibly a source to send out his bands to attack for his own amusement, for the purpose of war. But for the Red Dragon, it would be a source of acquiring even more riches to do with what dragons do. So this god of the bugbears has a rival without and a rival within, but otherwise is content to exist in this stasis until something disturbs it, or a more obvious direct path to returning to his own home plane is found.